The Irishman, a Martin Scorsese film about gangsters. What is there to say, really? A master filmmaker in his element. Led by enticing performances from Robert De Niro, Al Pacino, Joe Pesci, and many others, the film tells the story of a mob hitman, Frank Sheeran, played by De Niro, who gets involved with the Bufalino crime family. The movie's focus is on conversations and the relationships between the characters. There's lots of scheming, trickery, and manipulation involved in most dialogue exchanges. Great direction and performances keep the conversations intense as the viewers are familiarized with the context of the situation, recognizing hidden motives. Through clever visual subtext, the audience is encouraged to see through the deceitful chit-chat, focusing on what's not being said. Personally, I feel like the older age of the characters added a great benefit to the storytelling, as their expressive and characteristic faces, furrowed with wrinkles, gave way for a lot more acting subtlety to shine through. It actually took me back to the peak Game of Thrones episodes from Season 2, when Tyrion was using political ploys to expose deception in the small council of King's Landing, playing games on Varys, Littlefinger, and Grand Maester Pycelle.
And remember,
the Queen mustn't know.
The movie feels mature in terms of direction and pace. I mean, it still has Scorseseisms like freeze frames, slow motion, awkward realistic violence, good food of course, and great music, but the style does not overshadow the story, and the direction feels a lot more restrained. The focus here is much more in reflection and intellectual humor, as opposed to the hyper energy and blood-pumping violence from Goodfellas. I guess the best way I could describe it is to show you a comparison between the two characters Joe Pesci plays in Goodfellas and The Irishman.
I'm gonna shoot him in his big fucking mouth.
Hello? Hi, my friend. How are you? Listen, I got that kid I was talking to you about here. I'm gonna put him on the phone and let you talk to him, okay?
Oklahoma kid, that's me. I'm the Oklahoma kid. You fucking farmer. Thanks, Yahoo, you motherfucker. Come on, you.
Better watch. There's a lot of tough guys around here. Did he tell you? You're not afraid of tough guys, are you? I didn't think so.
The film feels like a deserved addition to the gangster genre. It has a totally unique approach to its predecessors and provides a good comparison with the preceding gangster flicks. If I had to find an analogy myself, I'd say that Trainspotting 2 felt just as well earned like that. The Irishman's themes are a little further from previous Scorsese's films like Casino or Goodfellas, and more similar to Once Upon a Time in America, but I'd say with a little less cheese. De Niro's character's Frank Sheeran's flashbacks to his army days in World War II quite perfectly encapsulate his lost hate throughout the story. The flashbacks explain the lack of virtue and immorality that people were left with after the war, but more importantly, they reflect on how unrewarding the character's gangster life feels to him. Throughout the film, he does not really make his own independent choice and is kind of pushed into situations, feeling like it's the right thing to do. It's best described by the military attitude of following command in a quote,
"You followed orders. You did the right thing. You got rewarded."
That's why, unlike Goodfellas or Wolf of Wall Street, where the main characters indulge in their vices of power, money, sex, and drugs and felt total gratification, Sheeran is left unsatisfied and indifferent. He does not get his excessive montage glorifying the gangster life. Even De Niro's weirdly desaturated and empty blue eyes make him look dead inside, like a lost spirit drifting without a purpose. Al Pacino is wonderful and a really entertaining presence. He's mesmerizing to look at and barely dials down on the Pacinoisms and his charismatic hoo-has. I mean, it could get on your nerves after some time. The movie is of course 3.5 hours long, but as the character starts losing power and being forgotten, the over-the-top performance gains a desperate undertone, strengthening the feelings of powerlessness and patheticness. Anna Paquin plays Sheeran's daughter in the film, and she does not have a large role, barely even speaks throughout the movie, but the scene she's in delivers some brilliant visual storytelling. The girl sees through her father's fake veneer and calls him out on his crimes. There is some beautiful, no-word spoken conflict between them that captures the family drama and the uneasiness and awkwardness Sheeran feels at home, adding to his loneliness and purposelessness. Gangsters who tend to glorify family values are called out on their hypocrisy. I myself have a soft spot for movies that follow a character through a large period of his or her life, like Forrest Gump. I like to see the hero grow up, rethink, learn, and reflect as he changes and becomes almost completely different to the person that started the story. It feels like we don't get that sort of deep characterizations in movies nowadays. Usually the filmmakers feel like they need to quickly get to the good stuff, the action, effects, the tension. It excites the audience easier. Only TV seems to have much more time to explore its characters in this depth. The Irishman in this case is a charming exception. The cinematography and specifically the shadow play is beautiful. It is helped by a gorgeous old-timey film stock color palette with subtle changes through the different time periods. The editing is also great, focusing on reactions and creating intense and suspenseful build-up. The shots are held just a little too long to cultivate anxiety. All in all, the whole screening is just a fantastic time. With a runtime of 3.5 hours, it feels more like a theater performance or an opera. It's an authentic artistic experience with an intermission in the middle. You know, sometimes it just feels right to celebrate cinema like that, even with the simplest of formalities. Unlike the small-budgeted independence of Studio A24, the film celebrates original cinema, with a beautiful and expansive world full of many interesting locations, great production value, and visual effects. Suddenly, Scorsese's comments excluding Marvel movies from cinema and comparing them to theme park rides make a lot more sense. You've got Star Wars 9, Frozen 2, Jumanji reboot, remake, sequel coming out, and then you have Scorsese with a $150 million budget gangster film about old and unhappy people dealing with death and the inescapable meaninglessness of finality. The Irishman is a joy to watch and inspires hope for the big budget original cinema. So go see it.